Andriku Namaskaram. There are many ways to introduce a guest, but I would assume that the very worst way has to be to say that our guest today needs no introduction. And I think the second worst way of doing an introduction is to spit out everything that you pick up from Wikipedia. Wikipedia, don't get me wrong, is one of the great inventions of the internet. No question about that. But when you search for VVS Laxman on Wikipedia, it will tell you that Mr. Laxman is the great-grandnephew of India's second president, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. When I read that, I told myself, wow, wonderful. How wonderful that we can link Mr. Laxman to Mysore and to the Maharaja's College where Dr. Radhakrishnan taught, and where the other great Laxman from this city, R.K. Laxman, studied. I thought we could use this Mysore connection of Mr. VVS Laxman to link him to Saraswatipuram, where Dr. Radhakrishnan had a beautiful, beautiful bungalow which still exists. I thought we could link Mr. Laxman to the little walkway next to the railway track near Kalamandira, which used to be called Radhakrishnan Walk a long time back. And so I had all these wonderful, wonderful hopes. But I clicked on that NDTV link, which is on Wikipedia, which links him to Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. And as it so often happens in the internet age, that page is missing. The NDTV page which links Mr. Laxman, this is not Laxman's work, incidentally. Somebody has put it up on Wikipedia, but they have linked it to NDTV saying that he is linked to Dr. Radhakrishnan, but that page does not exist. So what does one do in a circumstance like this? Well, as a proper journalist, you can do some background checks. So I asked the grandson of one of the presidents of India whether VVS Laxman is linked to Dr. Radhakrishnan. I had a very cryptic answer. I asked a friend of mine to check in the great-granddaughter of Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. Again, the answer was very curious, very cryptic. There was no solution, no clarity. So what does one do in a situation like this? Maybe we could have asked Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I don't know how many of you are aware, since we are at a literary festival of the Mysore book clubs, etc. I don't know how many of you are aware that Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, has a link to Mysore. His son Dennis Conan Doyle was a friend of the Maharaja of Mysore and came to Mysore several times on expeditions, on hunting expeditions. But unfortunately, we can't ask because Dennis Conan Doyle is dead and gone, but he is buried in Mysore. Book Club Wale, please keep note. So who could tell us of VVS Laxman and Dr. Radhakrishnan? Why don't we hear it from the horse's mouth? Is this true? Is there a link? Or is this made up by somebody or what?
No, so there is a link. So my mother's sister's husband, that's why it's mentioned, it's a distant relative. He's Sarvepalli Padmanabharao Garu. So he is related with Radhakrishna Garu. Yes, yeah.
Awesome. So that's clarification, and that's also journalism. Well, if there's one thing that Mr. Laxman truly hates, and this comes across beautifully in the book, it is opening the batting. But that is precisely what he's doing today in Test cricket. That's a good clarification. So he hates opening the batting in Test match cricket, but that's precisely what he's doing today, opening the innings on day 2 of the Mysore Literature Festival. So welcome, Mr. Laxman. Welcome to the Mysore Literature Festival. As you might say, Mysuru Sahityo Utsavaniki Swagatam. Okay, that's fantastic. So let's get down to the business. Mr. VVS Laxman has just met his match here on the stage today. There are 14 incredible words in this book. Quote, I have the not unfounded reputation for hitting the shower at every possible opportunity. I have the not unfounded reputation for hitting the shower at every possible opportunity. And I can proudly state that I've had 2 showers already. I want to check how many Mr. Laxman has had this morning.
Well, only one at 5:30 in the morning.
5:30.
I drove down from Bangalore to be, in front of all of you. It's only one so
Only
far.
one. So I had 2, one after a jog and one before coming here. But Saurav Ganguly says that, Saurav, who's known you long before you got married, Saurav Ganguly says that you used to have all kinds of shower gels in your kit. And the reason I'm saying this and asking this is not to trivialize this conversation, because it really, there's a fantastic little anecdote in this book which is around Mr. Laxman's great shower. It happens in South Africa, and let's hear it from Laxman. What happened in South Africa where the 4th umpire got into the picture, Sachin was couldn't bat? What was that? What was that shower story all about?
Yeah, I think first, let me clarify about the shower. I know there's been a lot of talk about me taking shower. I mean, it's just about, getting ready for batting. And you just feel fresh, when you have a hot shower before I pad up and get my opportunity to bat. So I think, I know that over the years, people have sort of talked a lot about, my habit of taking a shower. What happened in South Africa was, this was a test match in Cape Town. And I was slotted to bat at number 5, Sachin at 4 and Rahul at number 3. And we had 2 openers, Sehwag and I think it was Wasim Jaffer. And unfortunately, Sehwag didn't bat, didn't open the innings. The reason being that there's a rule in cricket where the number of minutes you're out and not on the field, till that if it's more than 10 minutes, then you're not eligible to bat. So as it turned out, Sehwag was, I think, for 15 or 20 minutes, he was out on the 4th day evening. And South Africa suddenly we bundled out. And when we went into bat, I think it was Rahul who opened with Wasim Jaffer. And both of them saw through the evening. And then next day morning, Sehwag was slotted to bat at number 3, and suddenly Wasim Jaffer got out. And then Sachin was padded up. And it was the 4th umpire usually has to inform that, in fact, it was not Sehwag who was out, it was actually Sachin who was out. Yeah, Sachin who was out of the field. And so Sachin was not eligible to go out to bat. And so Sehwag and Wasim Jaffer opened. Number 3 was Rahul. Start of the 5th day morning, I think it was Sehwag who got out. Rahul went out to bat. Immediately Wasim Jaffer got out. And when Rahul went out to bat, that's the time when the 4th umpire came and told in the changing room that Sachin was not eligible to bat for, I think, 4 or 5 minutes. And that's when I was in the shower, following a normal ritual of mine where I was getting ready because I was slotted to bat at number 5. And Wasim Jaffer straight away got out. So Rahul was all alone there waiting for Sachin to come down. We were told that Sachin was not eligible, but I was in the shower, and by the time I got ready, it was probably 7 or 8 minutes. And that's why ultimately Saurav Ganguly had to walk out, because he was batting, he was slotted to bat at number 6. Yeah, it was a very funny incident, but I think it was more lack of communication from the 4th umpire. So usually at the start of the day, the 4th umpire will come and inform the batsman that you cannot bat for a certain number of minutes because you were out of the field the previous evening, which didn't happen. And that's the reason the confusion was created.
Awesome. This is a great story to tell you the risks of taking a bath. And I hope all mothers here will have some sympathy for children who do not take a bath, basically not taking a risk. Let's also further introduce Mr. Laxman a bit, because it's the cliched way of introducing VVS Laxman is to pun on his initials. So this grand thing of very, very special has stuck with him. So we could have called him very, very special Laxman. We could have called him a very, very stylish Laxman, VVS, for VVS as in very, very stylish. We could have perhaps even called him very, very sexy But you see, that's a word Mr. Laxman does not utter. If you see a couple of YouTube videos, the interviewer tries to prod him, but Mr. Laxman will not bite. So how do we introduce Vangi Purapu Venkatasai Laxman? One of the trivial ways in which we could introduce him is to say that there are 27 letters in that name, one more than the alphabet. An equally literary way of introducing him, and I really welcome you to join in, is to call him India's first leg break batsman. Because here is a man who really batted like a leg spin bowler, using his wrists to play just like his idol and mentor in some ways, Mohammad Azharuddin. The way he was able to maneuver the ball from outside off to the leg side would have made him a very, very stylish batsman, but also a great right-arm leg break batsman. But if that's too technical, let's just come down to the nitty-gritty of today's discussion, which is this book, 281 and Beyond, copies of which are available outside the paperback. So we are here to discuss this, and these are the 3 digits which have really elevated Mr. Laxman to a legendary status. His 281 happened in Calcutta in the second test match against Australia in 2001, and it is counted as among the top 5 test batting performances of all time. And the rest of this conversation that follows is not entirely about this book, but built around it. There have been 2,508 test matches played in the world so far, 2,508, including the Ashes test which is going on. Mr. Laxman, your 281 is rated number 3 among the top 25 innings of all time. There's only one other Indian score in the top 25, which is Mr. Gavaskar's 221, which is at number 23. Ian Chappell, the great Australian commentator and captain, calls this innings of Mr. Laxman the best playing of spin bowling he has ever seen, quote unquote. And if you listen to some top flight statisticians who compute numbers on the basis of the kind of opposition, the quality of the pitch, the state of the match, and so on and so forth, some statisticians say that this 281 is actually worth 356. So notionally, Mr. Laxman is India's first triple centurion. Notionally. And what many people forget is that this came in the second innings of the test match. And in the first innings, Mr. Laxman had scored 59. So 281 plus 59 makes it 340. 340 runs. And if the statisticians get down to it, perhaps he may even be the first Indian batsman to score a 400 notionally. I don't know if that is true. But let me ask you the first big question, which is, everybody talks of how this innings changed the course of that match. But how did it change India's cricket history? How did it change? I mean, I would think it's far more important as an innings than the 1983 World Cup, although you say the World Cup is very important. But in terms of a test match turning the way the world looks at India, I don't think any other test match has come close. Would you agree or would you disagree?
No, I would disagree, because I think not only 1983, obviously 1983 World Cup victory of Kapil Dev and his team definitely inspired me to take cricket as a profession. But even before that, there were some unbelievable test victories Indian team had, and there were unbelievable inspirational cricketers who had represented the country, but this test series was something which was not only memorable for me, but memorable for the both the sides. Just the context of the test series, where Steve Waugh and the Australian team had 15 consecutive wins. He himself
16.
15 consecutive wins, and then he mentioned that tour of India was the final frontier for that Australian team if they had to be compared to the 1950s invincible Australian side. And they handsomely beat us in Mumbai, getting their 16 consecutive win, and scoring more than 400 in the first innings, and we were bundled out for close to 180 runs, 274 runs behind. against a good bowling lineup, and against a very formidable batting lineup. But to pull back the innings the way, not only me, obviously the contribution of Rahul, who was asked to bat at number 6, he came and got 180 runs, a contribution from both the openers, Satkopan Ramesh and SS Das, and then on the final day, in less than 70 overs to bundle out a formidable Australian batting lineups. It was a complete team effort. So obviously that test match and the test series, because everyone talks about the Kolkata test match, but even the test match in Chennai was a nail biter, where we just scraped through and won that match and won the series. Because if you have to beat that formidable Australian team, every run you had to really work hard, every wicket you had to really toil to get that wicket, and just the nature of our victory, the nature of our victory makes that test series a very memorable one. So it's not only about the result. As a cricketer and as a cricket team, we learned a lot of life lessons from that series, and I think that is something which allowed us to face similar kind of situations going forward. Like I would straight away say the one in Adelaide in 2003-04, very similar, but we bounced back and won the test match there. So I think a lot of life lessons we all learned from that test series, and I think it was something which helped us to grow as a team. And that team under Saurav and then under Rahul, Anil and MS, I think our dream was to become the #1 test playing nation in world cricket, which we achieved in 2009. But I think the journey started from that test series against Australia in 2001.
You love the Aussies, which is very strange because not too many players have performed very well against Australia. You love the Aussies. Your first century was at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Your 281, of course, was against Australia. And you scored 2,434 runs just against Australia. Nearly a quarter, if I'm not wrong, nearly a quarter of your runs came against Australia. Here's a small little line I want to read out to you from this book, 281 and Beyond, which is out there for your purchase. Here's a line Mr. Laxman writes in collaboration with R. Kaushik. Quote, Adam Gilchrist hardly spoke to batsmen from behind the stumps. Adam Gilchrist, the Australian wicketkeeper, hardly spoke to batsmen from behind the stumps. But I clearly remember him clapping for a couple of my shots. Oh, it's almost like the dawn is batting. Oh, it's almost like the dawn is batting. He said this more than once. Had I not been so focused, I might have figured out if he meant it genuinely or was trying to get under my skin. But I'm sure it must have been the former because it was Gilly. One shot I remember with particular fondness going down the track to Shane Warne, bowling from round the stumps into the rough, well outside your leg stump and hitting him inside out along the ground through cover. That's not the point. The point is the comparison to Sir Don Bradman, which is on page 10 of this book. So this is what you get in this book. Lots of lovely anecdotes like this. You get anecdotes like why Virendra Sehwag got the Best Actress Award. You realize why Mr. Laxman did not get a BMW X5. You understand more and more about how he was angry with Greg Chappell when he threw the Times of India on his face, in a particular scene. You also understand the great contributions of Mr. Laxman's family in his endeavors, especially his uncle Baba Krishna Mohan. And you also understand at the very end of the book how Sachin Tendulkar helped them secure an appointment with a doctor in Germany. These are all the wonderful anecdotes you get in this wonderful book. And what you also see, Dhanuj, what you also see is this little thing you might want to look at.
Are you ready, Ashok? No, Ashok, this is not the right way to play. Instead of playing towards covers, try and play towards mid-off. Okay. You got it? Okay. Come on, try. Yeah, good shot. If your elbow is straight, your back will automatically come straighter. మీరు ఇట్లానే మెయింటైన్ చేస్తే రంజీ ట్రోఫీ కాదు ఇండియా కూడా తప్పకుండా ఆడతారు. ఆల్ ది బెస్ట్ అశోక్. థ్యాంక్ యూ.
That's a typical Telugu. a typically movie-obsessed Telugu in a movie with Venkatesh. And if you go on Google and search, you'll find a number of anecdotes involving Mr. Laxman and cinema and music. But let's get to Mr. Kaushik here. Kaushik, congratulations on this book. It's really Mr. Kaushik is doubly lucky because the last two cricket books we've discussed in Mysuru have both been co-authored by him. The first one was with G.R. Vishwanath and now with VVS Laxman. But Kaushik, wonderful job. This is a really interesting book in the sense that it's not just the run-of-the-mill cliches we are used to seeing in cricket books. And it's full of details, it's full of granular details. How were you helped in this process? I know you followed Mr. Laxman from when he was a small boy, but what helped you? Did he keep a diary? Did he refer to a diary? What really enabled you to get so much detail into this book?
Morning everyone, and thank you so much for having both of us here. Obviously, like you said, we know each other for more than 30 years now, and I think one of the first things you require when you do a book of this nature is to have trust. He needed to have trust in me, to trust me with all the details of his life, some of which are in the book, some of them are not in the book, and it's a call that we make depending on whether it's required for the whole world to know certain things or not know certain things. The one thing that he was very clear at the beginning itself was that there will be no compromise on honesty and integrity in the book, that there is no agenda to writing the book. The idea is that if he could put his story out and if it serves as an inspiration to some of the younger kids, then nothing like it. It's not to talk about how great a batsman he was or how great a human being he is, which we all know he doesn't. You don't need a book for that. But it's very funny because when you stack up as many matches and as many years and as much of experience as he has, there are certain things, we all forget things in life, right? I mean, we just move on and there are certain things that go to the back of our heads. And as you start talking about stuff, then things keep coming back to your head. And I remember many of the conversations, we never met for this book, we only spoke on the phone. We didn't meet even once. But as we spoke and we would sit down and say, okay, today let's talk about this subject. And within 10 minutes, we're talking about something else totally different. And that goes on for 2 hours. And some of it is not even in the book, but it's just, it's a shared journey. It's Laxman's first overseas test series was in South Africa in '96. That was also the first time I went overseas to cover a test series for my newspaper in Hyderabad. So I guess in a lot of ways, obviously he's achieved a lot more than most of us here. But there's been this parallel sort of link between our journeys in our respective professions, and I don't think either of us considered it a profession. I mean, I don't think for him cricket was playing cricket was a job. For me, being a journalist, not really a job. Yes, of course, it puts food on the table, but it's just we have a passion and we get along well. We have sort of fairly similar ways of thinking and reasonably similar values. So I think all of that contributed to 281 and beyond.
So you seem to choose introverts for all your books. G.R. Vishwanath, now VVS Laxman. Of course, Mr. Laxman's claim of being an introvert, I don't take it too seriously because he's quite voluble, he's very open, he's, as you said, he can take a conversation up to 2 hours. But that's what people he knows and trusts. So I don't think he will call himself an introvert. He takes time to warm to people, but when he does, then obviously we're all able to see what he does. Mr. Vishwanath is a totally different cup of tea. So it was like he's trying to get some water out of stone. But that was interesting. Obviously, he's from a different generation, and I haven't seen him play as much as I watched Laxman play. But I think there's a challenge in itself to get, especially people like Mr. Vishwanath to talk, and that's something that I enjoy, I guess. Yeah, I mean, a point Mr. Kaushik just made is something I can vouch for because there's an enormous amount of candor in this book, which is surprising for a book on a cricketer by a cricketer. There are 2 full pages on match fixing, a controversy most cricketers try to stay away from. There are 2.5 pages on Greg Chappell, again a chapter in Mr. Laxman's life which many ex-cricketers do not want to touch upon. There is no picture of Greg Chappell in the book, I must tell you, but there are 2.5 pages on Greg Chappell. That tells you of the kind of candor that Laxman demonstrates in this book. And there's a fine little anecdote which I think is worth hearing from Mr. Laxman's mouth, because it involves Greg Chappell, it involves the team, and again, the team bus has left without him, and it is a story which is quite reflective of this book, and I will come to that in just a bit, but if you would like to talk on that whole little incident of you not being able to make it to the bus.
Yeah, I think that was the South Africa Test match in 2006. I was the overnight batsman. The match was very interestingly poised, and we were staying in a hotel known as Hampton Sun in Joburg, and unfortunately, according to Greg, I was probably 15 or 20 seconds late, and just in front of me the bus leaves to the ground, and I was obviously very disappointed. I and Srishan, both of us were left behind, and then I had to go to the reception and look for a cab, and it was a working day. We know there's a lot of traffic in the morning hours in Joburg. We had to fetch the cab, go to the ground. Unfortunately, we didn't have the accreditation, so the gatekeeper of the Wanderers was not allowing us to enter the ground.
And you were the overnight batsman.
I was the overnight batsman, and then I had to convince him that I'm wearing Indian clothes, Indian team's clothes. So can you please at least call the manager? So all this happened, which was very unfortunate. Especially keeping in mind how tight the test match was poised, and an overnight batsman who actually has to be in the best frame of mind to take on the South African bowlers and get to a total where we probably could defend. But that's the challenges sometimes you're required to face, and that's the beauty of playing a sport. And I've been taught right from my childhood that when you're playing sport, you have to exhibit sportsman spirit. And I think that again gave me an opportunity to test myself, because on one side I was definitely very disappointed. All the negative emotions, were running through my mind. But then you're representing your country, and I took a lot of pride playing for the country. So I had to just switch off and focus on the task which was in front of me. And as it turned out, I think I don't remember the exact score, but I got a half century. I had a partnership with Zahir Khan, and we gave our bowlers enough runs on the board, to defend. And that was one of the most memorable test matches. So I would never ever, as Kaushik mentioned, that there are various incidents which I definitely write in the book in a very open manner. Right from my childhood, when I started playing cricket with my brother, with my uncle in the neighborhood, till the time I retired from international cricket in 2012. So those are the things which I share, but every experience of mine which I share in the book is with keeping in mind a youngster is actually a young aspiring budding cricketer is reading that. So it's almost like what a particular incident can help them to face whatever situations they are facing, and I've always been in that, I always had that kind of mindset, even when I'm commentating or the current role at the NCA is how I can share my experiences through different mediums to the next generation of cricketers, because it's not only about scoring runs or taking catches or taking wickets. There are other challenges a professional sports person goes through. Now, ultimately, how the experiences I had, good or bad, and I was able to overcome that. So ultimately, I could go out and play to the best of my abilities and perform for my country is something which I write in that book. So that is one of the incidents. But there are a lot of cherishable moments in my career, and I think I'm very fortunate that my dream, as I mentioned, when Kapil Bhaji and Indian team won the Prudential World Cup in 1983, I had the wildest dream of representing the country. The background I came from, full of doctors, engineers in my family, my parents themselves, eminent doctors, and I had that dream. And for me to live my dream, and even today I'm continuing to live my dream and to get an opportunity to play more than 100 test matches, I feel I'm truly blessed. So I think the book is all about sharing my experiences, and I was very fortunate that my good friend Kaushik accepted to write that book. And it's more about, if someone can get inspired, someone can learn from the experiences and the journey I had. Just like the way I enjoy reading books, just like the way I get inspired reading books of eminent personalities, not only sportsmen but eminent personalities, and learn from their life, I would be more than happy.
Awesome. Awesome.
Just if I may, you spoke about Greg Chappell and how many people have steered clear of talking about Greg Chappell. Also in that book, at the beginning when the Chappell chapter in Indian cricket starts, Laxman has spoken about how he was a great fan of Greg Chappell growing up, how he had posters in his bedroom of Chappell's batting, and in some places Chappell has been pilloried and castigated for whatever he did, and all my career, Chappell was the coach when during his entire stint I was covering a lot of cricket, and I still believe that what he wanted to do for Indian cricket, his heart was in the right place, but the way he wanted to do it was not something that resonated with the team. And from Laxman's standpoint, whatever he has spoken about his interactions or his issues with Chappell, they are very personal and very specific. It's not a witch hunt, or it's not like he's a monster. Not this is what affected me, therefore that's what he's spoken about. So.
In fact, there's a nice quote at the end of that chapter on Chappell, where he says the results, quote, the results might suggest that Greg Chappell's methods worked to some extent, but those results had nothing to do with our coach. That's how the chapter ends, and that's how painful this whole chapter on Greg Chappell is. And the reason I bring that up is also to describe this book, because at one part, you can look at this book as an autobiography of an India legend, Test match number 209, Test match player number 209, the fourth highest run getter after Sachin, Rahul Dravid and Sunil Gavaskar. So you can read it as an autobiography, you can read it as a love story, with a great happy ending, because here's a young man's passion which attains fruition because of his parents and his uncle, who plays 134 test matches over a 15-year period. So you can read it as a love story with a happy ending. But if you look at this Greg Chappell episode and a couple of other episodes in this book, you can also read it as a lament for cricket, a kind of a tragic story. And I don't mean to bring down the mood of this hall, but only to suggest to you that although cricket looks lovely and glamorous and so on and so forth, what Mr. Laxman repeatedly reveals to us in this book is how lonely it is to be a top flight cricketer, how lonely it is to be injured repeatedly, how lonely it is to be not communicated whether you're being dropped or picked. And Mr. Laxman really brings that out very, very well, and that is the point I was trying to make. So Kaushik, if I may ask you, here's a very quick question. South India has had a number of fantastic cricketers, number of them. Gundappa Vishwanath, Prasanna, Chandra, Venkat, Kirmani, Srikanth, Kumble, Azruddin, Srinath. Yet so few of them write books like this. Why do you think that's the case? Are they very shy, very cagey, very secretive? Or what is it that makes Laxman not very South Indian in that sense? Yeah, either of you can.
No, I don't think they are cagey or secretive. I think we are, I can't say they are, we are all very private people. And I think we respect and value our privacy, which is not to say that people who write books do not respect and do not value their privacy. But I think, one of the reasons also why you write these books is to sell these books. Okay? And most of the South Indian boys are very good boys, So you don't have these juicy masala tales that sell books. And I don't know, honestly, I have not thought about it. But
what do you think, Mr. Laxman? In fact, in your book, you count Virendra Sehwag, Zahir Khan, Yuvraj Singh, Harbhajan Singh, and Nehra as your closest buddies in the team. Repeatedly, not just once. All of them, of course, are not South Indians. They are North Indians or West Indians. So are South Indian teammates kind of, what I'm saying, just staying shy, secretive, or are they very boring? Always
I
playing
think
the book.
I'll cut you down here. I would say I think it's a personal choice, because writing a book involves a lot of hard work, and also a lot of commitment as far as your time is concerned. And I was fortunate that Kaushik, again, I repeat myself, he accepted to write my book. But the reason I wrote my book, if you see, it was a dedication to my mentor, my uncle. So it was my uncle, who always wanted me to document my journey as a cricketer. Because again, the background I came from, thinking about making a profession in cricket was probably the wildest and the farthest dream anyone can have. Because, and especially I'm talking about early 1990s where cricket was an amateur sport, unlike today where it's a proven career option. And I wanted to be a doctor, in my 11th and 12th, I took BPC in my 10th. In fact, I stood first in the state in science, and I almost enrolled myself in a medical college. But my parents gave me the freedom, but it was also the encouragement, the motivation I got from my uncle. So my uncle always felt that there are a lot of young kids who aspire to become cricketers, or they aspire to become film stars, or they aspire to do something which is totally different to what a normal young kid does in India. It's changed now, but in 1990s, it was all about becoming a doctor or an engineer. But how someone, once they commit to a dream, how they can work hard and achieve. And nothing is impossible, is what he felt that my life signifies. So he wanted me to document this, so the youngster who's reading this book, again, this book is more for youngsters, who dream big. And so through this book, they get a motivation that if I can become a cricketer, I can play 134 test matches, then they can also strive hard, commit to their dream, commit to their passion, and nothing is impossible. So this is more of a dedication. This is more of me dedicating this book to my uncle, who allowed my parents to take the decision, who forced my parents to take the decision, and also my parents who gave me the freedom to pursue my dream. So as far as others are concerned, I think it's a very personal choice. It's not that they're boring, and all the names you mentioned there have been unbelievable leaders. So we cannot tell that unbelievable leaders who led the country with so much of success are boring people. But I think everyone, I have got a decision to make, and I think it's a personal choice, which I feel, especially in this platform, we require to respect that. We require to respect that.
Absolutely. That's a good point, because there are wonderful words for a lot of fine South Indians. He has excellent words on Anil Kumble in his book, and he calls Mr. Kumble the greatest competitor I have played with or against. Mr. Laxman is in awe of Kumble bowling with a fractured jaw in Antigua. Mr. Laxman is very proud that he was the man who took the last catch in Delhi, which gave Anil Kumble his 10th wicket, 10 out of 10 wickets. And most importantly, Mr. Laxman calls Kumble inarguably the greatest match winner in Indian cricket. So by no yardstick can we run down any of these people. But my question to you, Mr. Laxman, is would you place Mr. Kumble as a match winner beyond even Kapil Dev in that sense, or is that because you did not play with him and talk to him?
No, again, I don't want to compare cricketers. I think I've always been someone who respected anyone who's played for the country, because I know for one, that it's how difficult it is to represent the country and even play one single test match. So we are talking about players who have achieved so much and who have not only achieved a lot of success for themselves or for the team, but they've inspired generation of cricketers to take up the sport. So it's very difficult to say who was the biggest match winner. But I was fortunate to play alongside Anil, and I think the way day in and day out, he took a lot of pride in wearing that Indian cap. And again, that incident in Antigua sort of reveals the true nature of Anil Kumble, the cricketer and the person, because he was someone who, every day wanted to do his best on a cricket field for our country, and with a broken jaw, when we knew that he was supposed to fly out to England to get operated. And then suddenly we were surprised when he walked into the ground and he wanted to bowl. He bowled and took the wicket of Brian Lara. So I think he was an outstanding personality who inspired me, and I was very fortunate to have played a lot of matches in my career with Anil. And again, Kapil Paji, I mean, what can you tell about Kapil Paji? You know, someone. I'm glad that movie actually came out, because this generation of cricketers should know the impact the 1983 World Cup winning team had. And I made sure, and luckily BCCI arranged the screening of that movie when I was with the India under-19 team, just the eve of the finals. And we all saw in our resort where we were staying. And I was in tears. You know, a lot of these youngsters were in tears. And that was not even the full story, you know. So now it's good to see on the big screen, but you can just imagine what they must have gone through. And for Kapil Paji as a leader to inspire his team, motivate his team, and then that win at Lord's inspired someone like a great Tendulkar, inspired me to take up cricket as a profession.
Oh, that's awesome. Mr. Laxman also has some fine words for our Mysorean, Javagar Srinath, whom he calls the biggest prankster. Maybe you should explain one of those pranks so that we'll understand why you call him the biggest prankster.
There were a lot of pranks Sri used to do. I remember this was in Dunedin in 1998. And we were there to play a test match. It was raining every day. So the first two days of the match was washed out. And suddenly, someone comes and knocks at my door. And when I opened, there was Srinath in Pagdi. So he was going to everyone's room because Harbhajan was part of the team. Sort of helped him to
Sardar's
Pagdi. And so Sri was fantastic. But again, a fierce competitor on a cricket field, and a true match winner. My debut test match, it was because of Sri that it became very, very memorable.
This was
Ahmedabad. I got a half century, but whatever runs you score has got no meaning if your team doesn't win the game. And because of Sri's bowling effort, where he got 6 wickets and helped us to win that test match, and I think that was the best exhibition of reverse swing I've actually seen in my entire career. I think that spell from Sri was fabulous. A prankster, but someone with a big heart.
But did he rag you when you entered the team?
Always. He still rags me. Even 2 nights back, both of us went on the same flight to Delhi. We went on the same flight. We came back on the same flight. After this event, I'm going to meet him. He still continues to rag me. He still continues to treat me like his younger brother. And that's the beauty of the players I played with. Whether it's Anil, whether it's Srinath. That rapport, that bonding is something which we continue to share even now. A lot of people ask me, especially after my retirement, do you miss batting? I tell them I had enough in my career, and I don't miss batting. But what I miss is the camaraderie, the dressing room environment, atmosphere we all were lucky to share. So that camaraderie, that bonding I had with my friends, that is something which I definitely miss after my retirement, because we don't necessarily get enough time to spend together.
Kaushik, through the book, it's quite baffling for some of us ordinary mortals. But to see a young man being so devoted to his parents, being so religious, going to Shirdi, going to temples, chanting the shlokas, reading Swami Vivekananda's books, etc., etc. A vegetarian, an arranged marriage. All of this is such an ideal image of a young Indian. What did you look at it as? Is this normal? Is this kind of a guy who does everything to the book? Who studies well, almost gets into medical college.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought of it like that until now, to be honest. But again, like I said, I know him for a really long time, and I know that whatever he has said is what he is.
Let me just say why I said that. Because you hear of so many stories of success getting into people's heads and then not coming down. What you see all through the book is an incredible ability to stay equanimous. The word Mr. Laxman seems to love and seems to talk of equanimity. It's fantastic to look at.
Yeah, I mean, as people, you do change, yes, but obviously he's not changed. Anyone who's sitting here today will vouch for the fact that equanimous is what he is what he's been, and it's not, this is what you see and this is what you get. It's not a put on, he's not saying something for effect. And again, the circumstances mold us, I suspect, in terms of how we turn out. And he had this great family upbringing where his grandfather was a Bhagavad Gita scholar, and his parents doctors, very grounded. His father even now runs a flea clinic. He's almost 80 and he works about 10-12 hours a day. I don't think he will call it work. So when that is where you are coming from, then I guess you are bound to pick up these values, and these are things that since you pick them up at a really early age, they stay with you for the rest of your life. So I mean, I've heard there was a time when these guys used to share rooms. There used to be 2 players to a room, and his corner of the room was like a little temple, is what some of his roommates have told me, which is not necessarily for show, it's for himself. A lot of the things that sometimes we are guilty of trying to do it for people to see, but I guess the best things are when you do it for yourself, because that's what you believe in and that's what your values teach you, and that's what he is. I was not surprised. I knew him, therefore nothing that he told me took me by surprise. No.
Well, those who are interested, through the book, Mr. Laxman talks repeatedly of the spiritual experience, in different ways. Goes to Shirdi after the first test against Australia, goes to 2 more temples before he hits the great innings of 281. As Kaushik mentioned, when Mr. Laxman rooms up, if his first roommate is Zahir Khan,
In that test
in
match,
that test match, his roommate was Zahir Khan, and he talks of how Zahir Khan and he were absolute polar opposites, and Zahir being what he was, and Mr. Laxman was apparently his side of the room was a mini temple. He also talks of chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita repeatedly, and of course, he talks of Sachin's own association with Shirdi Sai Baba and his devotion for the Sai Baba, and he talks of all of those things. So these are some interesting anecdotes you'll pick up. So as we wind down, Mr. Laxman, let me get to a couple of slightly pesky questions. You are from Hyderabad. You took your bus from Abbott's. Asif Iqbal's cousin, Mrs. Khan, stayed in your apartment block. Azharuddin was your idol. You played for Arshad Ayub's team. You stood between Arshad Ayub and Abdul Azim. Zahir Khan was your roommate, and you have seen really how secular cricket is and can be. Are you perturbed sometimes these days when you see this silence of cricketers when it comes to some really touchy issues? For example, the silence of cricketers on Mohammad Shami. I know you spoke of it, but you tweeted about it. Very few people did so. As someone who grew up in a fantastic syncretic place like Hyderabad and who's had all these experiences, are you a little concerned with the communalization of cricket?
No, I'm not at all concerned. As cricketers, and even now, I speak to the entire cricketing fraternity. We never ever talk about or think about which religion a particular player is from. It's about having one common mission and one common commitment, and wearing that India cap and going out and representing the millions of Indians who are praying for our well-being. And every player I played with or I'm watching now at the National Cricket Academy, any generation of cricketers you talk to, they all know that they are the ambassadors of our great country. And they actually go out, knowing that there is so much of responsibility on their shoulders. And there's one common mission, and you want to compete against your opposition, and you only win matches, you only win series when you play as a team. While cricket is a team sport, you also contribute as individuals, but as individuals you can only win certain number of matches. But as a team, you win big tournaments. So I just feel that never ever such thing actually play in the minds of the players. And I think India is such a beautiful place. It's a big country. We all know that. And what I see even now as the head of cricket, because the responsibility of as a head of cricket at NCA, the responsibility of NCA is to nurture and groom the future stars of Indian cricket. And it starts from the tender age of 15. So we have camps right from the under 15 age group till the senior players. And the diversity of the players coming from different parts of the country, different culture, different religion, is just unimaginable. And that's the kind of bond, a player at a very early age, builds. You mentioned that, my good buddies were Sehwag, Zahir. Zahir was from Srirampur, Sehwag from Najafgarh, Haryana, Ashish Nehra from Delhi, you have Bajji from Punjab, and then Saurav from Kolkata, S.S. Das from Orissa, Sadgopan Ramesh from Tamil Nadu, and the guys from Karnataka, from Andhra. I think when we enter into that Indian dressing room, it's the Indian team. It's not which region you come from, which religion you are. Only about going out and representing and doing your best, so that you can fulfill the expectations of the team.
Awesome. We are running out of time. We have 10 more minutes max. Okay, let's run through this quickly. You've been to Pakistan more than once as a player. You have experienced their hospitality. You've admired their talent. It was in Pakistan that Sehwag overtook your 281. And you write, quote, he writes, Lahore was one of the most inclusive cities I have visited. Lahore was one of the most inclusive cities I have visited. We went to the Pakistani side of the Wagah border, and all of us have pictures with 1 foot in Pakistan and one leg in India. We made friends on and off the field too. These are fantastic sentiments. But very quickly, do you think it's now time for India to tour Pakistan?
See, I think there's a decision with the governments required to take, because we also know the political situation between both the countries, and I think it's very important for us to respect that.
Should Pakistani cricketers be in the IPL, you think?
Again, it's everything is related to what are the diplomatic ties between the two countries. While you are playing a sport, also you have to understand that we are part of the country. Cricketers are also part of the country. So I think the government takes those kind of calls based on the diplomatic relationship and the relations between the two countries. I think it's not right on my part to even comment on that.
As I mentioned in the beginning, this book is also a bit of a love story. The other love story running through this book is Mr. Laxman's long friendship and association with Rahul Dravid. There are 54 references to Rahul Dravid in this book. 2 more if you use the words jam, which is Rahul's nickname. 56 references to Rahul Dravid in this book. His partnerships with Dravid in Calcutta, in Adelaide, and Rawalpindi are legendary. Dravid was the NCA head before he became the coach of India. Mr. Laxman is now the NCA head. Do you foresee a chance of following in the footsteps of Rahul Dravid again and becoming coach?
I'm not sure as of now, but I think one common thing between me and Rahul is that we want to give back to Indian cricket. And the reason I've taken up this responsibility at the National Cricket Academy is whatever I am today is because of Indian cricket. And there comes a time when you have to give back, for whatever you got. And that's the beauty of playing and representing the country for 16 years. Because during our playing days, we get a lot. We're given love, we're given respect. All of you pray for our success. There's no connection between us. Some of us don't even know each other, but you all pray that we go out and play to our potential, win matches for the country. And I always feel that there's a divine relationship between the fans and the players. So whatever I have got as a cricketer, I thought that after my retirement, it's a way of giving back, and it's important to give back. And my decision to take up this role was to give back to Indian cricket. So it's a 3-year term. So I don't know. And one thing you mentioned about Bhagavad Gita, Kaushik talked about my my grandfather being a Bhagavad Gita scholar, the upbringing I had was it's all about contributing. It's all about contributing. And when you contribute, you're not thinking in what position, in what sport, but you're always looking to contribute, So, and you're not thinking about the fruits of your action. And that's what is the entire synopsis of the 12th chapter, is you do your duty without thinking about the fruits of my action. So at the moment I'm doing my duty of giving back to Indian cricket, I don't know about the future.
Quickly, do you think, if you look through this book, you've played a number of tournaments of different kinds, 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, etc. Do you think we in India have made a big mistake by putting all our eggs in the IPL basket?
Not at all. And I think India, we're not putting all the eggs in one basket, by the way. I think the stock market, equity market is really good. You know that diversification is the way to progress. So there's good diversification. I think obviously IPL. A lot of people have said good things. There are very few people who actually feel that IPL has been an hindrance for the growth of Indian cricket. I would say, and being part of the IPL right from 2008 when it started, I feel that a lot of positives which has emerged from IPL. The kind of players we boast of the bench strength. I think the bench strength is because of IPL, where for almost 2 months the uncapped players. It's not so much about the experienced international cricketers, but it's about the uncapped players. Where would they get an opportunity to rub shoulders with the best of the business, not only from India, from across the world, And I never had that while growing up. So I think that will help them to evolve and grow much quicker than what they would if suppose they're only playing domestic cricket. And it will be the same now with WPL. I can guarantee you that our women's team will progress rapidly because of the experience they already had with the inaugural WPL, which happened start of this year. So I think IPL has been a game changer according to me. Having said that, every format has its own beauty, and I still feel that your test match cricket is the ultimate cricket for any cricketer. And if you ask any cricketer from this generation, they also want to be recognized as a wonderful test player. Because the longer the format, the longer the duration of the game, you're tested in every possible way. And I think all the 3 formats gives you that kind of an opportunity to test yourself. And at the same time, I think ultimately cricket is a sport, cricket is a form of entertainment. So in different formats, if we can entertain all of you, I think the cricketers will be very happy.
Super. We are really running out of time. I have lots of questions, but let me just briefly touch on a couple of them. The Karnataka connection in his life, simply because this issue is very important. The reason Mr. Laxman is so very important to the rise of Indian cricket was his ability to back with the lower order, the ability to back with the tailenders. And those statistics are quite stunning because Mr. Laxman played 225 test innings. 34 times he was not out. As opposed to this, Sachin Tendulkar was not out 33 times out of 329 innings, and Rahul Dravid was not out 32 times out of 286 innings. This is not to compare, but what I'm trying to suggest to you is this ability to bat with the lower order has a Karnataka connection because it came against a match against involving Shivlal Yadav, who gave him a piece of his mind when he threw away his wicket, and so it bounces into the picture. Again, Laxman, makes a triple century against Karnataka, which really straitjackets him into or rockets him into the team. And most importantly, finally, is the fact that Mysore was a small trigger in the retirement of Laxman because it was in a hotel room in Mysore where Sunil Joshi and Noel David were in the room that Mr. Laxman really decides to make his call. Any more Mysore memories besides these? Or Karnataka memories?
A lot of memories. Now I'm staying in Karnataka, in Bangalore. And I never imagined that I'll move out of Hyderabad and stay in any other city. But if there was one city, I always felt it was Bangalore. I've got a lot of friends in Bangalore. I love the place. My family has agreed to move with me to Bangalore, and they made a big sacrifice. I was a little apprehensive how my kids would adjust to Bangalore, to the new environment, but they love it there. My daughter loves the school she's going to. So I think, as I told, Karnataka, the players with whom I played are my closest buddies. Bangalore is one of my favorite places in the world. Mysuru, whenever I came, it was to play a match or to watch a match. Because last year also I came to Mysuru when we were conducting a camp in one of the university grounds here. And Mysuru is a beautiful place. And I think it's not about the place. What makes the place beautiful are the people. I think I'm throughout the country, wherever I go, I'm lucky that I meet beautiful people who actually have followed my career and who at some time have prayed for my success. So I'm grateful for that.
Any regrets at all after this wonderful career? I mean, I know your career is still not ended as an administrator now, but any regrets? Regrets not being test captain, regrets not having played the World Cup, 50 over.
I think, when you're competing at the highest level, you have a competitive mind. You want to have goals, you set out and you work towards achieving those goals. But the day I retired, in fact, the next day morning when I got up, I got up with a wonderful feeling of contentment. And I told to my wife that, wow, I made the right decision. And I think that feeling I got just because each and every day as a cricketer, I gave my best, with the mindset that can I get better so that I can do better to my team, and for my country. So there's no regrets at all. And I think I told at the start of this conversation that coming from the background, the family background I came from, and to play 134 test matches, where at the start we thought even would I get to play one Ranji Trophy match, what else can I ask for? God has been very, very kind. I feel that I am blessed, and I'm forever grateful for whatever I got, and I'm getting even now.
So with that, we are going to be finishing the first session.
We'll just take 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. This is a question I have to ask because you played with Srinath for so long. Who's more laid back, a Hyderabadi or a Mysuru?
I feel both are not laid back. In fact, I once when Harsha Bogle wrote I think it was a biography of Azharuddin, he mentioned about Hyderabad is being laid back. And I remember meeting him in 1996 when I was playing club cricket in England, and India was touring England. And I confronted him and told that what you wrote was not right, because I saw in my house my father getting up every day at 4 o'clock, and reading all the latest journals to update himself. What's the trending, what's changing, methodology as far as his fraternity was concerned in the world. So I've seen my parents work hard. I've seen my friends work hard. So I don't think that Hyderabadis are laid back. And if you're talking about Mysuru being laid back at 10 o'clock, I think it's a full house. They are probably enjoying the Mysuru dosa or coffee, but all of them are here. So I'm assuming, because Srinath obviously is from Mysuru, he was very, very hardworking. So I don't think that neither the Hyderabadis or the guys from Mysuru are laid back. So sorry. They may disappoint you, I don't know, but I don't think they're laid back.
Kaushik, one last question to you.
Krishna Prasad, no. Please hold the question to the...
Okay.
We are really running out of time.
Any cricket book you want to mention? Any cricket book you want to mention that the book clubs must really read?
Oh.
Any of the books which has got R. Kaushik on the cover.